Then we get on to this. This is the one that's going to get me in a bigger rant. I've saved this one for last for a reason, because I probably will be talking about this for a while. So, Mickie James was released, and she was on a Zoom call or Skype call with SoCal Val and Tara or Victoria with their Grown Ass Women podcast they do. I think that's what it's called, Grown Ass Women podcast. You can check it out. I think they do some clips on YouTube and Twitter. But basically, the three of them just talk. And Mickie James was talking about how she believes that the guy that sent her the basket or the trash bag was still employed. And, people this was saying, like, was it Mark Carano, which a lot of people think he was not. He was a scapegoat. Some people were saying, like, John Laurinaitis. But I think a lot of people are commonly said it's probably Bruce Pritchard. Because apparently Bruce Pritchard has never been fond of Mickie James, saying like she's too old. And Mickie James actually talked about this. Saying that basically, I forgot the word, I forgot what they used, but it's almost like something kind of like sexist, where you refer to someone with a certain age, and then once you're a certain age, you're considered old. I'll tell you right now, looking at Mickie James, she ain't old. I think she might be in late 30s, maybe 40. I'll tell you right now, she does not look old. Okay, I've seen women that look old. I mean, have you seen Sunny? Actually, let's not talk about her. We don't talk about trash. In fact, there's a woman that deserves to be in a trash bag and sent to the dumps. But anyways, Mickie James was assaulted by this and wrongfully terminated for really no reason. And she kind of talked about this in the little group chat that she was doing, her little podcasting, on how she was talking to someone in WWE and asked, hey, maybe we should do an all-women's brand show with just women. And the guy basically, or this individual basically said, basically say, it wouldn't draw a dime. Then Evolution pay-per-view did the worst buy rate, which I don't know if that's true or not, but it can't be any worse than December to Dismember. But apparently the buy rate for that was awful. So basically, in their mind, it's unrealistic to have an all-women's show or all-women's brand. Basically, women's wrestling doesn't draw. Which is that's not the first person that said that. I mean, if you look at the IWC, or not IWC, the YouTube wrestling community, YWC, ICW, or IWC. No, that's the wrestling promotion, I think, in the UK. Not them. The YWC. My bad. I botched. The YWC. I've seen negative comments saying how women's wrestlers don't draw a dime. No one gives a shit. And then this kind of goes over to what Carmella said. Now, Carmella, I guess, was on an interview with the Bellas podcast with Brie and Nikki. And to basically sum up her issue was basically, in terms of the women, I mean, we're on a show for 3 hours. And it seems like the women don't get really any respect, like the women's tag division. And it's always cool for me to be the hot, sexy valet, type of person. But she wants to express more personality. And she said that when she was working with Bayley Kay for that brief period, she was kind of digging it. The personalities were coming out. And then when Bayley Kay was fired, she was angry about that. So Carmella's basically saying that there's zero respect in terms of the women's division in WWE 2. So Mickie and Carmella are probably not the only two women that feel this way, but basically the common thread is this. They feel insulted that women's wrestling doesn't matter. When it comes to the all-women's brand, it's really unrealistic. Because as long as the one man stays in charge, nothing's going to change. And let's be honest, there are so many brands in WWE, it's going to be overkill. I want 205 Live to be gone. The NXT UK at this point, no one really watches. And now you add, You're possibly adding more brands like the NXT Japan, NXT India. There's so many other brands that they're doing. It's kind of ridiculous. So me personally, I would not do an all women's brand. Now, with that being said, women's wrestling can draw. And I'm not talking about just tits and ass. I mean, women's wrestling can draw. It can. But you know what's going to take to make it meaningful? Effort. If you put the time and effort to women's wrestling like any other wrestling promotion has done for their main storylines for the men tag team way back in the day, I guarantee you the women could be just as over. I mean, for Christ's sake, look at Mickey James and Trish Stratus. That's a memorable feud back in 2006, late 2005, 2006. That was a great match they had at WrestleMania 22. Great build. Psycho Mickey was the greatest. People cared. Lita and Trish, their feud. A lot of people were huge fans of them, not because they were just sex appeal, but because they were legit athletes. They earned their stripes. They became athletes. They main evented a Raw for a women's championship. You know, look at Ronda Rousey. You know, she came in and she had one of the best debuts at WrestleMania. In fact, she had a match in the night at WrestleMania 34. Yes, granted, Triple H and Kurt Angle were a part of it. But it was all about Ronda Rousey. It was all the buzz was around her. She was a draw. Becky Lynch. When she became the man. When they turned her heel, which really she became basically Stone Cold of the women's division, at least the character-wise, became a badass. And when Nia punched her in the face and broke her nose, there was that awesome moment where she's in the crowd on the steps, and she's got her arms out and talking trash with a bloody nose. That was awesome. And remember, we wanted to see Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch. After we were robbed of that for Survivor Series, we were thinking that match had to be WrestleMania, and people were talking about that. Like how that's a dream match. That's a match we want to see. The Twitter beef is awesome. That would have been a draw, but of course they add Charlotte to the mix, and that match was not nearly as good or memorable. You know, Bayley and Sasha Banks, all the NXT matches, especially Bayley and Sasha Banks. The story was simple, and the match is still to this day, in my opinion, the greatest women's match, at least in WWE history, was Bayley and Sasha Banks at TakeOver Brooklyn. My favorite women's match of all time. Women's wrestling does matter, and it can matter. You just have to put the time and effort into this. Don't just send them out there in bra and panties all the time and just give them like 3 seconds, like 30 seconds back in the day. You just have to put the time and effort. You have to put effort into this shit. The women can get over. You just have to put the time, and you have to put the creativity into the matches. Give them the characters. Give them the storylines. Give them something intriguing that involves the women, and you can make it work. It doesn't matter if you have a dick or a vagina. You just need the right story. You need the right match. You need the right moments, the right story elements to make it coherent. And the women's matches can mean something. So women's wrestling, in my eyes, can be a draw. Hell, Evolution, WWE's Evolution, yeah, the build-up was not the best. But that pay-per-view, of all the pay-per-views in 2018, that was by far the best pay-per-view of that entire year. And it was one of the worst promoted pay-per-views. Charlotte and Becky Lynch in the last Women's Standing match was awesome. That was the match of the night. And I still to this day say that was probably the best main roster women's match. You know, Asuka in NXT. She was undefeated. People cared. They were wanting to see, like, who's going to beat Asuka? Women's wrestling can draw. You just need to do it right. Unless you're one of these haters online that just says, oh, women don't matter and you like more sausages on your screen, then that's just sad, because I think everybody deserves a chance. And look, I'm not saying everyone has to be a fan of everything. I'm not saying that. And I'm not even saying women have to get beat up by men in intergender matches. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying women deserve as much of a chance to go out there and compete. And they can compete however they want. They can learn lucha libre. It could be comedy. It could be well balanced wrestling. I mean, for God's sake, there's just so many. I mean, the women at the War Games. It was a big deal. People cared when they did the first ever women's War Games match. People cared. The women have main evented pay-per-views. Like Sasha and Charlotte inside Hell in a Cell. That was a big deal. When that was announced, people were excited. Now, the match was kind of a letdown, but it was still a big deal during that time. The match at night at WrestleMania 32 was a triple threat match between Becky, Charlotte, and Sasha for the vacant Women's Championship. Women prove they can draw. They just need the right people to help them write the material, to help with the stories, to help with the bullet points, to come up with ideas. They can draw. They really can. They can draw, and that's my personal opinion on that. Actually, not opinion. I think it's a fact. No, it's a fact. They can draw. But you need the effort. You need the commitment. If you're not willing to put the commitment, then of course they're not going to draw. They're just going to be like they were back in the day, just tits and ass. But they can be more than that. They can. I mean, there was a time with the TNA knockouts. There was a time when people were talking about them like, oh my God, this is amazing. I mean, have you seen some of those Joshi wrestlers in like Stardom in Japan? My God, those women are fucking animals in there. Hell, Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker. The unsanctioned match on AEW Dynamite about a month ago. Everyone was craving and talking about that match. Again, you can make it work. It's about the promoting. It's about the build. It's about the story. It's about the competitors. It's about the commitment and effort to make that happen. In terms of a brand, I don't think we need another brand. Regardless if Vince is in charge or Triple H is in charge, we don't need another brand. It's going to be too much. But in terms of taking the women more seriously and saying that they're not a draw, honestly, that's horseshit, and they can be a draw. That's how I honestly feel about this whole situation. Women can be a draw, but they need commitment.